Just to let everyone know that it's now recording, and Emma, you can take it away.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody, on this wonderful sunny afternoon in Lowestoft. Great to see so many of you on this call today, which really promotes the idea that the Lowestoft Ambassador Programme is growing, which is fantastic. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Emma Ratzer, and I'm the Chief Executive of Access Community Trust. We are a voluntary sector organisation that has been in Lowestoft for 46 years, and we provide a variety of support through a few strategic themes such as accommodation, health and wellbeing, employment and education. So that's a bit about me. For the rest of the session, a bit of housekeeping notice. We are going to be recording today's event so that those that can't attend can catch up later. If you wish to submit a question after any of the presenters, then please use the Q&A box at the bottom. If you don't wish your name to be shown, apparently there is an ability for you to add a question anonymously. At the end of each presentation, we will pause and I will read any questions that have been raised, and hopefully the presenter will be able to respond. And as always, we will be circulating all the relevant documents of today's event along with the recording afterwards. So why are we here today? Well, we're all here because we have a shared interest, passion and sense of pride in Lowestoft. The Ambassador Group was created to form a centralised place where private, public and voluntary sector organisations could be informed about all the projects and activities in Lowestoft and identify opportunities where they might get involved or where they may be able to collaborate. We want people to be ambassadors of Lowestoft, to share the story to employees, customers, clients, your supply chain networks and your friends. This is to challenge outdated perceptions and misinformation about the town and to articulate a far more vibrant and optimistic narrative. Knowledge is power. This is our second event in a series of 8 over a 2-year programme. The aim of the programme is for people to engage and provide input to work in what's happening in the town. We've got 4 guest speakers for you today to provide insight to you all on projects in Lowestoft which are transforming the place where we all live, work and love. The first of today's speakers is Karen Staples, who is the Regeneration and Growth Manager for East Suffolk Council. Karen is going to give you an update on the successful Towns Fund bid for Lowestoft. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Emma, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. I won't be 1 second. Okay, so I want to talk to you today about the Regeneration Programme work that's going on in Lowestoft and provide an update on the Towns Fund. So, as some on the call be aware, we've been on quite a journey with the Lowestoft Regeneration Programme. Back in October 2019, Lowestoft was chosen as one of 101 places to negotiate a Towns deal with government. In December 2019, East Suffolk Council was asked to lead on a plan for investment for the town, which included the potential to bid for up to £25 million in capital funding. So then in January 2020, the Lowestoft Place Board was formed. And this is a board that is a mix of private and public sector stakeholders that have interests in Lowestoft and are working in collaboration to oversee the creation of the town investment plan. During 2020, the regeneration team in East Suffolk Council spent a huge amount of time creating the town investment plan, working in collaboration with the Place Board and with other public sector partners to pull the town investment plan together. And this was submitted to the government in October 2020, and our ask was for £24.9 million to unlock 5 priority areas. So in March 2021, so this month, the government announced that Lowestoft had been successful in the submission of 24.9 million, which is great news. And we had a lot of support from across government and other sort of partners for the plan. And a heads of terms has been created, which is like an agreement to set out what the proposed deal looks like going forward. At the moment, the heads of terms have been signed by the Place Board Chair and by the East Suffolk Council Chief Exec as the accountable body. And we're in the position now where we are waiting for government to sign the heads of terms so that then we can commence the next phase of development of this work, which is the creation of the business cases for the 5 priority projects. This has to be done to HM Treasury Green Book standard, which is quite an involved process that really creates and ensures that the projects are created that are robust and are sustainable. So that is the work that we're now, the phase of work that we're now moving into. So really the next few slides are just to highlight the 5 project areas that have been chosen and to give a flavour of what's going to happen. But I suppose at this point it's just to stress that these 5 projects are now going to this business case phase, and so there's a lot of development to happen with these projects, and this is why really we've come today to the Ambassador event to start that conversation with businesses and communities so that they can be involved in the work going forward. A fly's just gone across my screen, do excuse me. So there's 5 projects. We've got the Cultural Quarter, the Historic Quarter, the Station Quarter, the Port Gateway and Seafront Vision. The 5 quarters were determined by our town centre master plan. That was work carried out last year as part of a need really to review and visit plans for Lowestoft and to look at how we go forward, how we can revitalise the town centre, how we can repurpose the town centre at a national level, and if not at an international level. It's, you know, the conversation is very much turn to looking at what is the future of town centres in an era where we can't rely on retail as being the sole purpose, partly due to online shopping and partly due to a change in demands. And so therefore, you know, what are our town centres for and how should they be repurposed? And particularly post-COVID, this is a really poignant question. So our master plan was done at a very relevant time, and what the master plan set out was, you know, what are these other offers that the town centre provides. And one of the feasibility work that's done at the local level showed that it was very clear that the culture and leisure options in the town centre were a real key opportunity for Lowestoft to change, to use that as a change and an opportunity for revitalisation in the town centre. This obviously goes along other sorts of uses such as housing, commercial space, office space, and also community space within the town centre, and that is all within the town centre master plan. So the projects that we have in the Cultural Quarter are the Battery Green redevelopment. So this is to redevelop the old Battery Green car park to create a new venue for leisure and cultural uses. And this ties into the Marina Theatre development and the Customer Service Centre development to include a food and beverage offer. It's recognised that this is a key, it provides a key opportunity because we already have some core assets in this space. We've got the Marina Theatre, we have the Bethel Theatre used by the Lowestoft players in this area, and we also have the Lowestoft Library nearby. And so a real opportunity to create a core physical hub and physical space for our sort of cultural and leisure activities. The next project we have is the Historic Quarter. We already have a project in this area. We have the North Heritage Action Zone, Lowestoft Heritage Action Zone, which is a partnership between East Suffolk Council, Lowestoft Town Council, the East Suffolk Building Preservation Trust and Historic England. And there's some key projects within this area that we're now able to realise. This includes the redevelopment of the town hall. So the Lowestoft Town Council are doing a huge project at the moment that we're working with them on to restore the town hall, to look at a new mixed use space, including community use. And the Towns for Money will help to fund that project. We're also looking at restoring the scores to make them improvements in those walkways so they're better for the community, but also to create a more of a visitor attraction, improving the trail through the Historic Quarter by using the scores. And then finally, we're looking at public realm in this area, particularly in and around the Triangle Market. We then have the station quarter, and this is, within the master plan, it is really shown as a key gateway. It's the main space within Lowestoft where people arrive by road and rail, so it's a really important gateway to the town. And the aim is to make this station square more attractive so that people dwell and spend time in the space, to meet in the space, and to have an improvement in the buildings and the use of the buildings in and around the area. And also quite a vital space for connectivity. So an improvement in this space should make it very clear that when you arrive in this space, you know how to easily wayfind yourself to the attractions within the town. So it easily connects you to the seafront, to the cultural quarter, or further up into the historic quarter. So we'll be looking at the railway station building, so to look at the restoration of part of that building, with the potential for a food and beverage offer in that space, to look at the restoration of the post office for cultural and leisure purposes, also to improve the public realm in this area. This area is also part of the South Lowestoft High Street Heritage Action Zone. So we already have an initiative within this area to work with other building owners within this space to make improvements to their buildings as well. So we should see a general uplift in the area. The next project is the Port Gateway improvements, and this project is all around improving this space of the town to make it more attractive for inward investment and for employment space within this area. So we're particularly looking to attract the offshore energy sector through improvements in the South Quay Wharf, and also improvements in the public realm and employment space in and around Hamilton Road. And finally, we have the South Seafront. So we already have the East Point Pavilion, which is an asset owned by the council, which we are currently repurposing and redeveloping, and is due to open later on this year. And that is to turn that space into a new food, beverage and event space. And we're also doing a piece of master planning work, which some of you on the call will have been invited to some of those workshops that we've been holding, which is all around master planning this southern area, so that we have a complete plan for Lowestoft. Having had the town centre master plan, this master plan then gives us a full sort of template for what the ambitions are within Lowestoft. The master plan work is going on at the moment and is due to end in August. And at the end of that work, we'll be able to identify which the priority piece of public realm work that we can then use to spend the town's fund money on. And as part of this presentation, we thought it was just a little bit important to explain the engagement that's been to date in the shaping of the town investment plan and the town's fund, and also how we will shape engagement going forward. So really we're speaking to the ambassador group today because we think it's important to set out, how we see these projects developing and how people can get involved. In the last year, we've had some really successful engagement. Our town Lowestoft Place Board has been really successful, and partners are really engaging and thoroughly committing to helping us to input into the town investment plan and to help steer that work. And we've also had a lot of success with our lead ambassador group, who are contributing to the placemaking work, the town investment plan, and helping us to share messages about what the ambitions are for Lowestoft and what we'd all like to see being achieved. And really this slide just sets out some of the feedback that we did digitally during the last year with the town investment plan, and it just identified those sort of key things that the community fed back as to what they thought were important. And unsurprisingly, two of the key things that came back was the need to address the issues within the town centre, and also to see the final arrival of the new third crossing, the new Gullwing Bridge, which obviously we're really pleased to see now happening. And clearly the town centre issues have been included in the Towns Fund projects, and the seed funding will hopefully and therefore start to address these needs within the town centre. So future engagement, with the 5 projects. Each of those 5 projects have their own stakeholder engagement plan and their own communications action plan. Working groups and project stakeholder groups will be set up with those 5 projects. We'll also be using these ambassador events to enable us to provide information and gauge feedback from a wider community and business perspective into how the projects are shaping up and what people would like to say about those projects. And also digital engagement will continue to be a theme, obviously with COVID ongoing, even though we're hopefully coming out of it. Digital engagement is still seen as a key tool, including the use of social media. And on that note, we have our new Lowestoft website that we've been created, and we've just got a couple of visuals to show here. The Lowestoft website is really a platform to enable us to have one place where we can store all of the work and projects and programs that are going on within Lowestoft. So, you know, those of the council, but those of also our project partners and other stakeholders. So this will be a sort of an all-embracing page, and that will give the opportunity to display information, but also have a virtual hub where we're able to take feedback as another media to take feedback from the public, from the communities and from businesses. We're hoping that this website will be online in the next few months, and we'll keep you posted, and obviously make sure we launch it far and wide when it is live. So our next steps, we are just going through that final process of signing heads of terms with government. So we're looking to get that 12-month time frame and that clock ticking really to get those business cases developed. We're also just working out our plans for community and stakeholder engagement, which we're starting to realise now. The business cases will be developed and then be ready for completion within the 12-month time frame. They will be endorsed by the Place Board as a sort of final sign-off, and will be given a final approval by East Suffolk Council Cabinet, as they are the accountable body for the finances. Once we've submitted the relevant documentation to the government within that 12-month period, we will then see the funding release. So that's likely to be in spring 22. Those projects will then run for 5 years. So they have to be delivered within a 5-year period from that starting date once the funding has been released. So I think really to summarise all that, there's a lot of stuff happening. You know, we are in the early stages, but we are on track to really develop some really key initial projects to start the process of the regeneration and the you know, foreseeing those ambitions of the town investment plan. That is my end of my presentation, Emma, but obviously I'm happy to take questions if there are any coming through.
Thank you, Karen. That's all very exciting, and those timelines were actually really helpful, because I know people are asking, does that mean the money is there now? How can I get some? So thank you for that.
Yes, no, it's not.
Very helpful, thank you. I can't see that any questions have come through, but I will keep checking them. So what we'll do now is we'll move on to our next presenters. So joining us today, we have Paul Agar, who's the Divisional Ports Manager, and Andrew Clark, Group Head of Master Planning, both from AVP, and I will hand over to them now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Emma. I do trust that everyone can hear me, and a very warm welcome to everybody. Just a few words from me before I pass on to my colleague Andrew Clark, who's our Group Head of Master Planning. In terms of AVP, we had our major launch last week of our master plan and project Leaf, and what we'll set about in the next 20 odd minutes is going through, I think it shows 52 slides, but I can promise you that we'll try and rattle through those as quickly as we can, but we do want to make sure we give you a really good insight into some of the really exciting work that we've got planned on the port and of course the town of Lowestoft. Next slide would be great. I'm really conscious that I've been in this business now for 5 years, and I can go back 5 years and it was a difficult business to get to know. So from my point of view, just a really quick slide in terms of who we are as AVP. As you can see there from the map of the UK, we've got 21 ports, all situated around you know, the entire coast of the UK, Wales, Scotland, and of course the UK. So the 3 ports that I'm responsible for are the port in Kings Lynn, the port of Ipswich, and the port of Lowestoft. So I guess I'm the local manager that looks after the region. In terms of AVP, we are split into three regions as such. So the ports in the Humber are one region, the port of Southampton is another region, and then all the rest fits into what's known as Wales and Short Sea ports. So as some of the text says, sorry, we've just moved on a slide. Great, perfect. As the text says, we touch and feel everything within in the UK: energy, cruise, containers, agrivolts, automotive, forest products, steel, everything. So everything comes through our ports. In terms of the makeup of our business, we're owned by some long-term investors. It says there global infrastructure. That's correct. Some of them are pension companies. So really looking for long-term investment in the UK, and we're thrilled to be part of that, because what it allows us, for the right commercial opportunity, is to get a hold of some quite significant amounts of private money to invest within our ports, which is really exciting. And then the final statement, if we, it says there we handle about 88 million tonnes of cargo. We do generate, it's now over 7.5 billion for the UK economy, and we do support 119,000 jobs. So that's a little bit about us. As I said, we had our major launch last week in terms of the master plan and LEAF, and I'll pass on to my colleague now, Andrew Clark. He'll take us through some of the detail of both of those events.
Terrific, thanks, Paul. Yeah, so lots of slides here, guys, but I'm hoping we can rattle through them with the able assistance of Gabs. So just the stuff you're about to see here is basically a replicated version of something the master plan you'll find on our port website. So please do have a look. There's you'll see there's a video on there, and we're trying to kind of make it a kind of a web front end rather than a kind of traditional static document. So please do take a look if you can. But let's kick off with the opportunities. The reason why the opportunities are really important is because it's almost the starting point for the infrastructure you design. You know, if the commercial opportunities aren't there, then you don't design the infrastructure at the end of the day. So let's just take you through some of these Gabs if you just want to click on. First one, and this will come as a great surprise to any of you, I guess, is this huge transition opportunity that comes out of our shift to net zero. And that is obviously offshore wind generation, but it's more than that, actually. You know, traditional national natural gas industries create an opportunity for us to shift over to a hydrogen economy using some of those kind of geological features and sort of storage areas. So we can really start to leverage that kind of almost historic infrastructure and use that as a bridge to the future hydrogen economy and use Bacton as an import point. Then there's this one. Again, it's kind of an environmental link, but there's the land won quarries for aggregates are becoming increasingly exhausted, and there's a growing focus on marine. And Lowestoft brings a strategic advantage of our ability to get the marine dredged aggregates off onto the rail network and feed really strong markets in London and the southeast. So that's a really key one. Gabs, next one. Fishing. You know, we'll be aware of that. A little bit disappointed, I think, about what we got out of the Brexit deal, but you know, there's still opportunities there, and we're very much mindful of those. Gabs, if you want to click us on. Now, latent innovation strengths. Now, you know, this is a huge thing. It's almost like a diamond in the rough for Lowestoft. You know, you've got CFAS up the road. There's 300 or 400 people up there with their PhDs. You know, this is a terrific resource, and what we need to be doing is really bringing that to bear via the port, hopefully, and obviously by the things that CFAS do. But grow that kind of side of Lowestoft's offer, and building, really knitting together this kind of cluster of different businesses that can both compete and collaborate. So they're kind of building almost like a web of different business relationships between there. So we're kind of looking outside the port boundary and thinking about how that sort of starts to work. Now, how all this kind of hangs together is critical, and the kind of the mindset that we approach it is really important. And the thing we're trying to get at is on this next slide, Gabs, if you could. So it's a kind of about a cumulative impact and building momentum. We've got a kind of a big rock, if you like, at the top of the hill, and we're trying to get this thing rolling down the hill. And it's that sort of domino effect we're looking to build, and get this effect and avoid this one. Yeah. So that's what we're trying to get away from. So next slide, Gabs. Now, how we think about that is really important. I think 10, 15, 20 years ago, we kind of inside ABP just thought of a port as a big kind of machine. It's a thing. It's a big piece of kit that takes things on and off vessels. But I think we've got to think about it in a more sophisticated way and make it look and feel a bit more like this broader ecosystem, where you've got to think about what's happening in the local economy. Next one. So that means you've got to think outside the boundary. And so beyond that red line, and if you just flick over to the next one, you just we've got to think about the way that the port relates to the wider society and economy that goes on outside our boundaries, and think as well about the things that happen over the long term, not just the short term. Okay, Gabs. So we shouldn't get carried away. We're really clear internally. We've got to curb our enthusiasm to an extent. We've got to make a profit. We know that the future's uncertain. We know that our plans are likely to change. And the fact is, we've got some really impressive international competitors. So we've got to be careful about what we think we can do. But with that proviso, we see three big things. There's objectives as central to our future success. So in that top yellow bubble, we've got delivering the energy transition. We talked about that. Then that purple one, you can see the Carport Sectors. We've got to make sure we cover those. And then in the blue bubble below, you've got widening competitive advantage. So Gabs, if you just do the next slide. Now, all of these sort of themes get delivered by these different projects that you can see in the kind of orbiting bubbles, if you like, there. So we'll run through those, starting, Gabs, with the first block at the top, which is the energy transition possibilities. So next slide, Gabs. So we're kicking it off with the town key renewal. This is the project that gets us gets the thing rolling down the hill, or maybe the first domino, if you want to kind of mix the metaphors. Next one, yeah. And this then feeds into this is the big one for us at the minute, and we're talking pretty chunky investments, 30 odd million quid. And it creates a step change in our ability to service offshore energy. So that's going to be a really big thing. It creates infill land, it creates new office space, it creates storage space. It really is a step change in our ability to do that business. Okay, Gabs, next one. And then as that kind of builds out, we start to think about the stuff over the other side of the quay. So this is almost what we're calling Leaf West, and there's a couple of options here we're still thinking about, but that is planned for years 2024 to 2026, all being well. Next one. Right, so we can build marine facilities that we just showed you to our heart's content, but we've also got partnering up with the right backlands. Now, down at the far in the port on Lake Lothing, there's the former, what we know as the former Shell base, and this is going to get switched over to be an energy hub with storage space for offshore operators and new key space for CTVs. So if you just want to go down. And also wanting to partner up the new demand that's in the outer harbour with new provision in the town as well. So there's a phased approach to Battery Green Road and some reconfiguration on Hamilton Quay. So next slide, please. And then all this has got to integrate with the council's plans for Power Park, which is the area immediately to the north of the outer harbour. And you can see Gulliver, the turbine up there, and Orbis is a terrific asset to the town. So we're kind of knitting all this stuff together and thinking very much more outside our boundaries. All this stuff needs powering with zero carbon fuels. So we're starting to think about how we partner up with particularly hydrogen producers, so we can use hydrogen powered CTV vessels to access offshore opportunities. So that's very exciting, really. So let's go on, Gabs. And this is just to sort of map all the things you've seen in that theme. So you can see there's a good spread geographically. So then moving on to the second block, Carport Sectors. A few projects in here I'd just like to whip you through. So the first one, Gabs, if you can do that one, it's a flexible strategy for fishing. Really, we've got three different kind of approaches there, depending on the growth that we experience in the fishing industry, but we've got the bases covered. And then this is the thing I was talking about earlier, the kind of the aggregates opportunity. So we can we can partner up the quayside with the rail facilities on this project that we're expecting in the relatively short term. And this one is a kind of steady state one, really. It's continued export access for agri-bulks out of the port, and so that's not the grain silo you see there is on a long lease to a port customer. We're also thinking about how we maintain and improve facilities for recreational boating. That'll be that's a terrific asset to the town, and so we're really interested about how we can build that kind of asset for Lowestoft going forward. So again, we've mapped those, and you can see where geographically they all are. And then the third objective, this is where it gets really important. The art of this is going to be attracting the investment to the town and port of Lowestoft, and then making it sufficiently attractive for that investment to stay. Remember, that investment's very footloose. It can go anywhere in the UK, or indeed northwest Europe. So it's very important that we create a very good investment environment, and it's not just ABP that can do that. We want to work with all our partners. So if you just click down. Inward investors rely on a really good quality supply chain from the local economy. So we want to build that out with things like Meet the Buyer events, and making sure that we build up the local business base to back the opportunities that we're generating. I also want to work with East Coast College to build the quality of the local labour force. East Coast College got some amazingly good facilities around marine simulation, the offshore wind industry. Terrific to be able to build on that as well. We want to grow that local innovation ecosystem that I talked about before. That's the CFAS birth that we're talking there. We'd like to develop relationships with CFAS to work out how that is going to develop further in future. We've got some interesting ideas. This looks at the kind of very exciting new, if you want to be highfalutin about it, kind of microeconomic geography that the Gull Wing creates. There's a potential shift in our ability to communicate between the inner and outer harbours. So that'll be a really important part of our offer. And we also want to work with the really big investments that we're seeing in flood defence coming through from the council. I don't know, guys, if you can still see still see the screen, but I can't see anything. It's gone blank. Okay, I can see now. I'm back. Right, we want to work with planners and landowners on a housing offer that really attracts skilled workers and their families to want to come to Lowestoft and to stay. So that's a big potential component. And want to work with the council and Karen's Town Deal team on developing that really key gateway site on the Belvedere Road to develop the heavy lift capability, and to make sure that the site is providing a great gateway for visitors into the town from the south, along with driving forward the public realm on another key gateway area for the port between the power park and the northern end of the port there on Hamilton Road. We've got to work on as well creating a good offer for our marine tenants, so we want to make sure we've got all that right too. So there you go, it's all mapped again. So let's click on. So how do we make all this happen? Well, Karen's mentioned before the importance of the place board, and we're also wanting to work with the Harbour Review Group and also feed into the Ambassador Programme that obviously that you're all members of. So that's really important. We're going to create a key user group that feeds into all that and work with the port alongside those opportunities, and also work with various bodies like the councils, and the LEPs to look at public investment where we know that we can't make something stack up, but it's going to be of wider social and economic value to the town. So we want all this to kind of hang together nicely. We like to think, we flatter ourselves that we've tried hard actually to make sure that this is a balanced and relatively comprehensive plan for growth that goes that stays not just inside the port, but very much goes to the wider town and sub-region. Just click us on, Gabby, and we really want to kind of spread that prosperity really that we think is going to get generated out of the port into the wider economy. You can see all that. Those are all the projects together. So yeah, we don't pretend to be the holders of all the knowledge on this. We really would love to have a kind of wider conversation about how our plans integrate with the plans of other public and private and sector community sector partners. And so we'd love to hear from you. We've got a part on the website where we can take your comments and would love to kind of continue the conversation. So Gabby, I don't know if we have mastered the technology to the extent where you can show the video.
I have hopefully mastered the technology.
Right,
Give me 2 seconds.
So fingers crossed. So just to introduce it to everybody, Gab. So yeah, we pulled this together. You know, it's very much targeted at a broad audience. So if you need to use it for any kind of Lowestoft promotional purposes, what you want to do yourselves, then just give us a shout, and we're keen for you to use it in the way you can. Okay, I'll leave it at that. I think I'll just be able to talk over it, Gabs, if I may. It's a little bit jerky when it's coming via Teams, but you can see how the whole thing sort of hangs together. That's the big investment project I was telling you about. But that's the step change one. And then you'll see just now this is the Hamilton Road area, and it really nicely orientates the whole thing in relation to the rest of the town. You'll shortly see the power park area coming into focus here, and it starts to go. I think it's purple and green. Okay, that's where the council's got some big plans for development. And just in the bottom right hand side, you can see the Orbis investment, and that was really key to I think starting some of the wider momentum 10 years ago there. So there's some really interesting tenants that are in that building now, and it's run by the county council on a commercial basis. Then we start to look at some of the kind of broader town master plan areas that are part of the town master plan that was pulled together earlier, I think last year now. But as we just move back down into the south towards the town, you can see that is the Western Leaf project. That's the one that we'd like to start about 2026, assuming that the demand develops in the way that we expect. And we've got the fishing industry and the development of the auction buildings. You know, it's a reconfiguration really, and a kind of an efficiency improvements there. So this is the key flood defences that are going to be so important to the future investment profile. You know, that hugely reassures investors that they're going to have an investment that's going to be stable over time, and we're creating a climate resilient future model. And as we go forwards, you know, you've got the Belvedere Road project, and you can see the heavy lift area. It's that slightly lighter coloured concrete, and that's really high point load, so that's a valuable kind of economic asset for us there and for the rest of the region. Then we've got the town key area. That's going to be focused currently on existing oil and gas customers, but there's going to be a really wide set of uses in future. This is the CFAX patch that we talked about, and the train you see zooming off just at the right hand side there. And then we'll start to see shortly the marine service area, so you can get your vessel service there. Again, if we're given a kind of a wider offer, that's really important to incoming investors, so they don't need to go elsewhere for their key sort of marine servicing needs. Dudman's a huge landmark for the town. That's on a long lease and supports the agricultural sector. And then we start to see the aggregates area with the Gullwing route sweeping in from the south. That's going to be really exciting about how that comes together. And then you'll see the Kirkley waterfront area, hugely ambitious plans for that are starting to, I think, come together, probably helped to the viability, which is really assisted by the flood defences. And as the train comes neatly back into view, you've got the energy hub area there, where we've got 60,000 square feet potentially of storage space and sort of marine facilities. And then we've got the Brook Peninsula, and as that comes forward, that's probably a slightly longer term development, but that will integrate very neatly with the Haven Marina. And so building, not only the kind of industrial marine facilities, but also the leisure marine facilities that make Lowestoft such a terrific place to be. So when you see it on the web, you'll hear all the nice music. You won't have me rabbit on in the background, but really do have a look. It looks really good. So thanks, Gabs.
Thanks, Andrew. That was really exciting. It's really good to see Lowestoft from such different views, which you don't usually see when you're walking around or you're driving around. So very exciting. Thank you for that. I have got one question that's come through on the chat, which is, when will the work begin on the Leaf project, please?
I think maybe if Paul's still around, we can. He might be able to assist on that.
Here, I was just trying to get myself off mute and video turned off. So, in terms of when the work can start, it's fair to say there's been a fair amount of work to date. These things are never quite straightforward and don't happen overnight. But we are planning on work starting in Q3 this year. And in terms of Leaf being operational, then our plan and aspiration would be for that to be commencing at the end of 2022 and be live ready at the start of 2023.
Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you again, Andrew. So moving on to our next presenter, we're going to introduce you to the lovely Phil Aves. Of course, we all know Phil, who is our change maker for Lowestoft Rising. And for the purposes of today, he is our lead ambassador for mental health. Phil is going to give us an insight into some of the work that's happening around mental health in Lowestoft and hopefully give us some hints and tips for our own mental health. Over to you, Phil.
I'm just getting the presentation up now. Just bear with me 2 seconds.
Lovely. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon. I'll just wait for Gabby to load that and make it there. So, yeah, after 2 fantastic presentations about some big spend in Lowestoft, and isn't it just great to see all those views of Lowestoft and the ABP's video showing all the stuff that is happening. It's really good. So I've got no money at all, but I'm here to talk around mental health today, because it's an important part of everybody's life, and often when I start a meeting or start a process, we actually like to ask people how their own mental health is. And it's really important, because if someone comes to work with a black eye, we kind of ask if they're okay. Maybe walked into a door, are you okay? And we think about all that. But often we aren't brave enough to ask about people's mental well-being. So I can't ask everybody on here today, because I think we've got 100 people on here, which is fantastic. I can't ask you all to give me your mental well-being scores, but I'm just going to quickly demonstrate what we would normally do. So we would normally say to everyone, can you just think about how your mental well-being is today on a score of 0 to 10? And I normally say that 0 means you shouldn't be here. You should be somewhere secure for all our safety, because life is quite so bad. And the other end of the scale is a 10, where I kind of say life is so good that you're actually already on holiday, and therefore you're at the top end of the scale. But of course, at the moment with COVID, you can't go very far on holiday. So the score is 0 to 10, and we just ask people to reflect where they are on that scale, and perhaps if they want to comment upon that. So if you're all thinking, hopefully in your own heads, goodness, is he going to ask me, what's my score? What would I say today? I've achieved something, because you are thinking around, how is my own mental well-being before I go and deal with someone else's? And then I'm just going to pick on 1 or 2 people just to demonstrate that it does work, and we do this on a regular basis in meetings. And I'll try to pick on people that I know and are probably comfortable with this. So, for instance, I'm Phil Aves. I work for Lowestoft Rising. My current mental well-being is probably about an 8, even though I'm faced with presenting to 100 people I can't see at the moment. Life is good. The sun is coming out and it's warmer. And actually, after this awful year we've had, all the hard work seems to be that we're beginning to see some light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm feeling pretty good. Right. So I'm going to pick on 1 or 2 of my colleagues. Jason Benham.
Afternoon, Phil. Yeah, I would say my mental health is a 7 pushing on 8. Anybody who knows me, I am a technophobe. And this morning my laptop was upgraded to Windows 10 and it's, touch wood, working fine. So yeah, in a good place.
Thank you, Jason. Emma Ratzer.
Thank you, Phil. I would say today I'm feeling like a 6. We're incredibly busy at work, but for all the right reasons. But it does make life slightly stressful. And I hate presenting at these sorts of things, and always wish I've said no after I've said yes. So none of that helps either, but it's all good.
Thank you. And Karen Staples.
Thanks, Phil. The thing is, Emma shouldn't be so good at doing these things, should she? We wouldn't ask her to do it. Thank you, by the way, Emma. I would say I'm an 8 because I'm just so excited about all the things happening in Lowestoft, and I will probably be a 9 after I've had some lunch.
Brilliant, thank you. So that's just, a simple kind of demonstration, and we would normally do that to everybody in the room. And the very fact that people are having to think about it is really important, because before we go and try to fix anyone else's mental well-being, we kind of need to be in a good place ourselves, or at least know, and certainly for anyone who's got staff, knowing those who are in a bad place or suffering is really helpful, not to go and pile a load of extra pressure on them. And perhaps 1 or 2 people in the room would then go along afterwards and say, hey, share some of that workload, while perhaps you're dealing with something in your private life that just is bringing you down. If we don't ask, we don't know. But just a slight anecdote, just before the outbreak of COVID, Chris Whitty, the guy who's on the telly every day now, came to Lowestoft to do a tour, and we were showing him around. And we had a meeting in the morning, and we asked our wellbeing schools. And then I took him to a school in the afternoon, where the school, instead of doing the register, they do the wellbeing schools. So the children shout back how they're feeling on the day, which is part of the work we've done. And Chris Whitty said to me afterwards, and this is just before he became the chief medical officer, that in his whole life he'd never been to Lowestoft before, but twice in a day he'd been asked how his mental well-being was. And in his whole life, no one had ever stopped before and asked him how his mental well-being was. And he did vow that he was going to take it back and use that in his new role as the chief medical officer. But I think COVID has probably given him more to do and more to worry about than that. So that's just an example of something that you can all think about and do. There is and I'm not allowed to say this, but there is an idiot's guide on our website about how to do this. We kind of wrote it down for people to have a read. If you want to do it in a meeting or you want some advice, then come and talk to us. And if you do want to start meetings with your team by using that, I can tell you it is a really powerful tool. And the final thing I always add about this part of the subject is that people say, well, what about if people lie? And apparently there is an old Chinese proverb that says, for man to lie, first he must know the truth. And so on that basis, that you know what your real score is, and that's probably the most important thing. So that's just one example around mental health. And my job today is really to just whip you through some of the mental health work we're doing to help people in Lowestoft, because you've seen an awful lot of good stuff today about the infrastructure and the input and the value of money being spent in the town. But it's really important that we look after our people. So Gabs, if you could just move a slide on. So Lowestoft Rising has a whole range of priorities, but our first priority is now mental health and well-being, and that reflects the fact that we really are a town that has huge challenges around mental health and well-being in our community, in our schools, in our workplaces. We're not alone in that, but we are kind of out on a limb in terms of services at times. So it's really important about what we all do to help that. And then our other priorities still exist: aspiration and potential in young people, working with the schools, drug and alcohol services, and particularly the homeless. And you'll be really pleased to know that we currently only have 2 rough sleepers in the whole of East Suffolk, and we only have 2 in Lowestoft. And those we're working with really closely. Integration and collaboration, actually trying to get people to work together. And I saw Paul was commenting in there about how important it is for partnership working and to collaborate and integrate and to know what each other are doing. And that's why the ambassador scheme is really good. And then pride in Lowestoft, building on what makes Lowestoft great. And I guess, if I'm honest, 7 years ago when we started Lowestoft Rising, that there was a lot of work to do to build pride in Lowestoft. And even today, just seeing the stuff that's happening and what we're talking around, the third crossing, sea defence is worth 60 odd million pounds, the towns deal, the port investment, you just think there's an awful lot to be proud of in Lowestoft. So they are our priorities. Yes, Gabs? So focusing on mental health and well-being. First of all, Gabs, we created a positive mental health manifesto for Lowestoft. So actually a group of us got together to try to create a document, a living document that said, we're going to do some things to embrace the community and get everyone talking around their mental well-being and looking after each other a little better. It led to the appointment of a mental health ambassador. Initially, that was Todd Sullivan, who took the role for us. Todd wanted to move on and he's moved out of town. So that role now sits with me. I was the deputy, but now as Lowestoft Rising, I sit as the mental health ambassador. And really that role is just to promote the services that everyone are doing, to be a real strong voice for Lowestoft when people are deciding what projects are going where, and to keep shouting us, 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 me, me, me. And, you know, to challenge the powers that be to make sure that we get the best services we can here in Lowestoft. I've touched on the introduction scheme, the how do you feel today? But a lot of our schools are doing that work in different ways, asking children actually how they are in the day, rather than just, yes, miss, I'm here. Actually, yes, miss, I'm an 8, or yes, miss, I'm a 2, and my life's not great. And really interesting how other children can respond positively to that and be the arm that reaches round another child and says, we'll look after you, is really powerful. You know, we haven't got enough resources to look after every child, but between us all, we probably can. I will pay some tribute to Todd in his early work. He managed to secure a Churchill Fellowship. He went over to America to research the mental health practice over there. And he came back with some really strong learning around it is about the community and why we call it communities embracing mental health. Really important, because you can't do it alone. The whole community have got to put an arm around each other. And we have to rely on our voluntary sector, each other, businesses to look after their staff, schools to look after their children. And that will then start to take some of the pressure off the high demand services that are there for people who are really in crisis. We've held 1 or 2 events. The first event was based on trauma-related mental health, a conference in 2018. 300 people attended that conference. We can't organise another conference at the moment because we just have too many people turn up, but we will start doing those again. Thank you, Gab. So what's really important is we've got a strong mental health network. So this is a network and it's called a VASP. A VASP is a voluntary and statutory partnership, and a VASP comes together particularly around mental health to bring together all the providers, anyone who does anything around mental well-being, be it a big organisation or a one-person band. And we've created a network. We have regular video meetings now to discuss what's happening. It gives our mental health practitioners a chance to talk to each other, find out what's going on, and also a network of through email, so that you can get messages out to everyone if there's a new service, or if unfortunately a service has to stop, we can communicate. And LEAF, which is really interesting because the ports have LEAF with 2 E's in it, and we have LEAF with an A, and it stands for the Lived Experience Advisory Forum. So it's giving a voice to those people with mental health who have lived that and want to share their thoughts, their experiences, or what would make it better for them. So that advisory forum can feed back into the official powers that create mental health services to make sure they're as user and lived experience friendly as possible. Really important, and that's really strong, led by Access Community Trust on our behalf, and is starting to really work across the whole of the Wavy patch now to get more people with a lived experience an opportunity to get involved, and they will then create better services. Healthwatch, our health colleagues, do an annual survey of young people in Lowestoft, well, in cross Suffolk, but in Lowestoft last year we had a dedicated survey with a dedicated Lowestoft results. It doesn't make pleasant reading sometimes to see that our young people are struggling so much with their mental health, and that things like self-harm and eating disorders and depression and anxiety are rife amongst our young people, and are even in our primary schools, is a real concern. But what I can say is now I think the Lowestoft is no better or worse than anywhere else in Suffolk, but we've still got a lot of work to do in the area of young people. Things like walk and talks, really important. You know, we've started to try to do these, particularly before the blight of COVID, to get people to stay connected. So workplaces organising walk and talks, go and get an ice cream on the seafront and go for a walk and don't talk about work. Schools going for walks to talk, and, you know, communities. And we're going to continue to do those things as soon as we can. And in the meantime, the community partnership have just commissioned some virtual walks. So if anyone wants to go on the Lowestoft Mile, which is a website, you will find a range of walks on there, mile-long walks, where you can do from the comfort of your own home. If you can't go out, if you're housebound, or if you're just afraid to go out, you can still follow a really nice walk. And whilst you wander around the house on your phone or iPad, you can hear the birds, you can see the sights, and you can do that. They're really good. It's another really good way of getting people thinking around, when I can walk, I would like to walk, and when we can do that, we'll do that. Sport memories at the library, another really successful thing for the over 55s, particularly men, using sport and sporting memories and talks to come together. Thank you, Gabs. And then the men's sheds and men's craft. And we particularly focus on that because we do know that men are awful at sharing their concerns and thoughts around mental health. The risk of suicide is much higher in older men. And so things like men's sheds, men's craft are really important to reach those. And now on to mental health in schools, because when we started our work with Lowestoft Rising, it was about raising aspiration in schools. And actually, we've done some really good work with the schools on raising children's aspirations and their attainment. But actually, what we have seen in that time is mental well-being being a real challenge in schools, and that self-harm, anxiety, eating disorders, depression is a real challenge. But there's some really good news, because we are in Lowestoft, because we shout really loud and bang our feet and stamp on the ground now, that we have been chosen as the next place to have the mental health in school support programme. It's part of a national government scheme. We're in the second wave for Norfolk and Waveney, and we went live in January of this year. We've managed to get 18 of our schools, including all our 4 high schools, to sign up. It covers 8,000 children in a scheme, and we were limited only by 8,000 children, and we probably have about 10,000 children in our school system. So 8,000 are covered by this scheme in the 18 schools. We will have a dedicated team of 4 educational mental health practitioners who will be based in 4 of the schools, but will provide coverage to all of those schools. They're supported by a really strong team of professionals across Norfolk and Waveney, and they've been involved in the first wave, which was in Kings Lynn and North Norfolk, to test it out. And we now go live along with Thetford in the second wave. And they're going to provide that medium and lower level support to those with the anxiety, depression, eating orders, self-harm, etc., to try to help earlier, support the school staff, and get the staff themselves working in a kind of whole school approach to good mental well-being, to do what we can to take the pressure off the top end services. But the top end services, which is point 1, and the children and adolescent mental health services, which are there for those in higher need, are still there, still really important, and they're continually being transformed to offer a better service to young people. But this will kind of sit alongside that, and it's a really important additional element that Lowestoft is benefiting from early. Yes, Gabs? And these are our 4 trainees. They're all at UEA at the moment, doing their studying, and we've kind of really front-loaded the studying in the period of January to March when the schools are off. So we've crammed as much as we can in so that they can get ahead of the game with their education. And then they will come out and start to practice in placement schools to start to put their education into practice and really start to help with the young people who've got those. And they've got access to things like video games that we know young people like to play, but ones can actually help them with anxieties and fears. So there's been the computer world of design video games that are actually helpful to mental health. And we've got access to resources like that. They have access to child psychologists. They have access to the staff they need if they've got a real concern around someone self-harming, but they'll also be able to work with the school family to try to provide the best kind of resources they are. So that's really positive news for Lowestoft. And then just finally to remind you all about the 5 ways to well-being as he preaches on about mental well-being, because the 5 ways are really important to keep connected. So difficult during COVID for many people, you know, so important to talk to people, not to be isolated, using networking, finding support groups, looking at the infrastructures we've got to make sure people are connected and know what's happening. To keep active, and actually I think COVID has been really good for getting more people active, which is good, but walking, cycling, sports, walking football, foot golf, swimming, encourage employees to, you know, walk at lunchtime, get out of the office. You know, do you do enough of that as your own organisation? Sometimes it just takes somebody to put the lead coat on and say, come on, people, let's go for a walk. Let's keep active and talk and keep connected while we do it. Giving back, volunteering, and we've seen an awful lot of good volunteering in the last year. Mentoring, helping to read in schools, businesses helping schools, helping others. And actually by giving back something, you know, it is actually really rewarding. It lifts your own mood. It gives you a sense of well-being, which is really important. Taking time out to enjoy what's around us. I mean, you know, we're blessed in Lowestoft with our beach, you know, with the Broads, with the marshes, with the walks, and now the virtual walks. If you can't get out, just taking some time out to reflect on what is a busy and stressful life and just resting. And when you're taking that time out, who else could you engage with to invite them off for a walk that you've not seen for ages? And finally, lifelong learning, actually keeping the grey matter going is a really important part of your well-being. So adult learning opportunities, new skills, different things to learn, cook, whatever. They say an active mind and an active body, but it's about learning something different or doing something different. And again, organisations and people here today, you could organise something different in your workplace. I know people have been doing online quizzes and online cooking and all kinds of things. They're really important. And the 5 ways to well-being is just a reminder that if we do those 5 things, they can improve and keep us as sane as we possibly can be. So there we are. That's a quick whiz through there. And I'll now hand back to Emma in case there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Phil. Just 2 points from me, really, things that are really important. One, being able to talk to everyone about what's going on in schools, because, of course, these are our employees of the future. So it's really important that people understand there's lots of support going into schools now. And I think also being able to quote the statistics around things like our really low rough sleeper rates really helps us to challenge those poor perceptions that people have around Lowestoft. So it's great to be able to report some of that back. So thank you. There is a question. No, there isn't a question. It's being answered as we speak. So thank you very much, Phil. And we are now going to move on to our final speaker, who is Jason, who I'm glad to hear you managed to get your Windows update done in time. So Jason is from Business in the Community. Business in the Community have been working in Lowestoft over the last couple of years to help really improve the links between businesses and community organisations. And Jason's going to provide an update on the work they've been carrying out. Thank you very much, Jason.
Okay, thank you, Emma. I kind of want to start first of all. When I first moved into this role, attended one of Phil's meetings and was asked this mental health question, and I have to say it is so powerful, and it just gets people talking. So much so, whenever I now run either a Kia or Business in the Community meeting, it's something I'm keen to introduce at the same time. I think it's just a very good icebreaker and just gets people talking, and even if they're not prepared to talk about it, it gets people thinking. So yeah, really, really good. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about a role and a project I've been doing for coming up to 2 years now with Business in the Community. So what are Business in the Community and what do they do? They are one of the oldest and largest business-led membership organisations which work predominantly with businesses. They are keen to engage and challenge their members, of which there are over 750, to ensure that these businesses, whether they're working locally or nationally, are building a thriving community for people to live and to work. So a lot of this presentation is going to kind of lead on from some of the stuff Phil was talking about, some of the stuff that Karen was talking about, and obviously AB Ports as well. So there's a clear link as we're going through. A little bit about myself, first of all. So I've worked for Kia Highways for 10 years now. My background was early careers, apprenticeships, school engagement and social value. And then back in May 2019, I had a meeting with my regional director who offered me an opportunity to come and support a campaign in Lowestoft on a 2-year secondment, which was placed under an umbrella called a Business Connector, which is a place-based approach. It's a strategy. Thank you, Gabby. So this place-based approach program from Business in the Community, it's very important that we understand, particularly right now, with the impact we've had through COVID, on how local towns and cities can respond and how they're working. And more importantly, that Business in the Community can link with the council. So I work very closely with Karen Staples and her team, that we link with major national and international businesses along with local businesses, and then we also work with the community, so we can look at how we can develop and encourage economic growth of that town. It's not new to Business in the Community, this place-based approach. There's been a couple of programs, one run in Blackpool and one in Wisbech, which have been running now for 6 or 7 years. And again, for me, when I first started the role, I kind of understood it being initially a 2-year program, but probably looking maybe at 5-6 years. Because if I'm honest with you, the first 18 months was me going around, introducing myself to different meetings and meeting lots of different people. Because at the end of the day, to Lowestoft, I'm an outsider. So it's very important that I understand the town and the people of Lowestoft, and more importantly, what everyone is working towards, so I can support that and Business in the Community can support that. Thank you, Gabby. So as I said, there's kind of 3 elements to this place-based program. For myself and for Business in the Community, we need to work very closely with East Suffolk Council. And as I said, that involved meeting with Karen and her team very early on back in 2019, and ensuring we understand their long-term vision. Because what is maybe successful in Blackpool or in Wisbech won't be successful in Lowestoft. So we need to understand what Lowestoft are looking for, what they're looking to achieve. And by doing that, and the contacts we have, and by working with the businesses, we can then hopefully support the council in their aims. The second part, as I said, is the businesses. Now, like I said, there's over 750 members. So again, one of the beauties we have at the moment in the East of England is we have an East of England place board, which is led by Anglian Water. and the chief executive for Anglian Water actually leads that board. And we've got some really big players sitting on that board. We have Aviva, Greater Anglia, Archant sit on the board, Essex and Suffolk Water. So we've got some really big players who, again, are keen to see the development of not only Lowestoft, but of the East of England as a whole. And then finally, and probably the most important bit, particularly where we are now with COVID, is understanding the community and the voluntary organisations and what we can do there. So again, it's supporting and working very closely. One of the things I was always told when I started this role from a predecessor in Wisbech was to get to know the community. And I think by meeting Phil Aves and Emma Ratzel, I've kind of got to understand the community and what they're looking to achieve. And again, I've done a lot of work with both Phil and Emma on that. So at the moment, we're kind of working on 3 key areas. Those areas being education, no one left behind, and obviously COVID-19 and the response and recovery from COVID-19. Thanks, Gabby. So if we look at education first, it's about making sure that every child's able to achieve an education. BITC, or Business in the Community, is a mission for business to play its part so that every child, particularly those facing social disadvantage, achieve an education and are able to leave school successfully and then thrive in a business. We're also asking businesses across the UK to support disadvantaged young people in education through long-term needs-led collaborative partnerships. What we're looking there is the old days of work experience, obviously at the moment, aren't practical. So there's a couple of areas we're currently looking at. If we take the East of England itself, the board, we're looking at ways that we can introduce virtual work placements. And then secondly, we're having a major campaign with a couple of big IT companies where we're looking to be able to support every child with either a laptop or iPad or some electrical device to enable them to work from home and continue their studies from where they've missed out. Because again, as I said, we want to make sure that no one is left behind in education. That leads on to being no one left behind in regards to work. Nobody could have predicted COVID. Nobody saw it coming. Obviously, we've seen record levels of redundancies in industries such as hospitality, retail, and culture. We need to make sure that the early career side of it doesn't suffer. So again, some of the things we're looking to do within BITC, we're looking to target, engage disadvantaged pupils, job seekers, running work placement programs. Again, some of these may be virtual. We're looking to develop essential skills in the education and employment. Now, when I say essential skills, we're also looking at upskilling people through apprenticeships. So again, we could, we could have people, and I'll give an example of somebody we've used in Kia. We have a gentleman who's just turned 50, lost his job, wanted to restart and retrain somewhere. We've taken him on a upskill apprenticeship, which means he's not paid a basic apprenticeship wage, but it allows him to train and learn new skills and turn some of those previous skills to allow him to take in work in a new environment. We're also running a series of webinars through BITC. So again, I would encourage people to go onto the BITC website and have a look at those. Again, it shows how you can work, how it works in practice, and it encourages businesses to partner with various supply chains. So again, it's very important that we're making sure when we come out of this pandemic that no one, no child, no adult, nobody is left behind. And then finally, this probably wasn't part of my role when I took on this place-based approach, but obviously with COVID and the pandemic, we've seen some massive issues and challenges, no more so in Lowestoft. So Business in the Community set up what was called the National Business Response Network. Easiest way to describe it, you ask, we will try and deliver. And what I mean by that is we can have major businesses, organisations, charities, communities who may need something. We have a big web page where we can load everybody's asks on. So it could be something as simple as we need 500 bottles of plain water somewhere. And we will then try and link one of our members to that ask and get them to provide those for us. Gabby, if you could take the next slide, please. So what have we done in Lowestoft with this national business response? In the UK alone, there's been nearly 400 asks which have been matched through BITC. Break that down to the east of England and it's 280. And in Lowestoft alone, we've managed to successfully match over 50 asks. Now, these have been various things. We've managed to support an organisation who requires some laptops for their staff to work from home during COVID. We've had various cash donations, which has enabled us to buy food storage units, shelving, fridges, freezers to support the food bank and deliveries. We've had building supplies such as Travis Perkins come forward and offer different building materials. All supermarkets have got involved. Morrison's, Tesco's, Sainsbury's, Marks and Spencer's have all been providing food for us. And we've also had a big influx on PPE and face masks and gloves, which again is massive. So all these have been able to be donated to Lowestoft through our members. And there's about 750 members, just over 750 members that we can go to and we can ask. One of the biggest ones we've had recently, one of the most successful ones, is the Kirkley Pantry, which is set up in the church hall, which obviously allows people who are struggling to pay a very small membership. I think it's either £2.50 or £3.50 a week, but enable them to purchase food. What I managed to do there was actually set up free sponsorships with businesses. So I've kind of linked 3 businesses to the Kirkley Pantry. So that has enabled one company to come in and ensure that the hall was safe to use, was clean, the outside was tidy, the floor was cleaned. We then managed to get another company to step forward and provide shelving and racking so that they could put all the food out on display. And then finally, we got another company to come forward and donate PPE for the staff, all of the COVID secure space signs, where to stand, along with hand sanitizer. So again, it just goes to show there's no ask too big or too small. What I would suggest, if anyone on this call is aware of any organisations or any businesses who I could either can support or are looking for help, if you want to come directly through to myself, and I can hopefully match anything you need or can match anything you're looking to offer. So that's kind of myself. Thank you, obviously, for giving me the opportunity to talk. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Jason. I assume that's a personal challenge, is it, saying no ask is too big?
It's I want to make sure that Lowestoft hits the biggest amount of asks matched in the east of England.
Well, you're doing incredibly well so far, so thank you for all of that. I've got a question to come in for you. Could you provide more detail on the Lowestoft specific business in the community projects that you're undertaking?
Yeah, so the main 3 at the moment, as I mentioned, is the education. So we have a dedicated team of business in the community who can support schools and education, and I'll be having conversations with Phil around that area. No one left behind, obviously, is massive for us. We want to make sure that there are training facilities set up. So we're already working with a couple of companies who are looking to bring some training academies to the town or on the outskirts of the town. And then COVID, as I said, I want us to be the leading light. I want Lowestoft to be the leading light on look what we can do. And then the beauty for me, my boss at business in the community is Lord Bassam. So I've kind of find if I ask him anything, he can open quite a few doors within Parliament, which will help us as well.
Great, thank you. And I have to say, what's been really joyful to see is big national companies engaging with Lowestoft on such a local level, which has been really good. So thank you for that.
No problem at all.
I haven't got any more questions for you, Jason, but Phil, I will bring you back in, please, because we've got 2 questions for you, which I know I've emailed you. One is around a question around some of the key things that local businesses could do around supporting the mental health of their staff. And the second question was around looking after school children post-COVID.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. And I'll try to deal with both of those. But just first of all, to just emphasise after what Jason said, I mean, Lowestoft Rising was set up in 2013 to connect the public sector and the voluntary sector together. And the work that I've been doing across Lowestoft over that time was to do that. And we've had some degree of success. But the arrival of business in the community was the one part that I'd never had any success with, which was to bring the businesses on board, to get businesses to help. And since myself and Jason have been working together, that it's added that extra element where businesses, you know, that example of places sponsoring and helping the Kirkley Pantry is an example. Jason sent teams into schools to help sort out a playground problem, you know, just all kinds of ways of helping where we knew that if we could tap into business, they should and they would want to help. But actually the business and community has allowed us to do that. So that's really important. So picking up the first of the two questions of what businesses can do, some of those things are the simple things about actually in team meetings, asking people how they are, having somebody who is your mental health lead in the organisation, giving them a bit of training, like being a mental health first aider, like Emma and Jason are, and so that they're equipped with a few extra skills, because sometimes it can be a bit daunting to step up to the plate and be the one asking. So you kind of try to find someone who's wants to do it and is supportive of doing it, and give them time to be able to be the mental health ambassador, to be able to go round and put an arm around other people and check when they're not too good or something's wrong. Some places have created a quiet room, a room where people can just go and take a little bit of time out, particularly, you know, in office complexes or in busy places, somewhere you can just go quietly. Some nice paintings on the wall, some nice views, some nice material in the room, a quiet room, that's an option. I think it's about leadership, making it okay to talk around mental well-being. So some actual leadership from people in business talking around their own mental well-being first, because if the boss is prepared to say they're having a bad day and they're having meltdown, then actually it's a bit easier for the employees to feel the same. To engage some of our voluntary sector organisations like Emma's and others to be there, to come in and do some stuff. If you're not comfortable yourself, there are organisations, we've got loads of them, Mind, etc., who will come in and offer help and support. You know, it's the 5 ways to well-being, just looking through that. Do we do events? Do we do socials? Do we reach the people who we don't normally reach? You know, should we do cooking? Should we have a cake day? They're all little things. I mean, the 5 ways to well-being are all important, but if anything I've learned is having fun and having a laugh while you're doing any of those 5 ways to well-being is even more value, because the power of laughter is really important. You know, so do we do that? Do businesses have the daily joke? Do you have something that makes people laugh? Do you have something that welcomes people in the morning when they come into the door? You know, do you have a nice painting that cheers people? Are you lucky enough to have a sea view? How can you use that? So there's all kinds of things that you can do. Some of these walks, like we encouraged Carlton Marshes before the lockdown to do business walks, business community walks. So you can go on a lunchtime and someone will take you on a guided walk around some of the marshes. Just get out, fresh air, talk to different people. But I think probably having somebody in the organisation who's prepared to be your own mental health ambassador, supported by the rest of us, you know, is really important. So that's that one. And then in schools, I mean, obviously I talked at length about the new schools mental health support programme. So children who are identified as suffering can have that quite immediate support from a trained professional who's also got that backup behind them. but a lot of the work we've already been doing with the schools. I mean, the YMCA here in Lowestoft are funded. They go in and do a great deal of support work with children in school and then both out of school to build their confidence up, those suffering anxiety and depression. We've got a number of our charities that do work. Our whole cultural education partnership, which is a massive separate piece of work here, bringing culture and heritage to children, focuses on doing things that are the 5 ways to wellbeing positive, so that things we are doing in school around dance and theatre and all that are enjoyable. And then we would encourage schools to make sure that the right children are joining the choirs, are getting support, are doing those different kind of things. We've been working with the schools for quite a long while. Just a simple taking of the register in a proactive way is important. Our colleges are working really hard on having kind of wellbeing staff that are really tuned in, and more importantly, know in the network who to refer people to. And actually, there's a real need to get young people more and more involved in it, because they can self-help through their own networks, etc. So there's quite a lot going on. We're going to have a lot more to do. I think COVID is definitely, certainly from the early conversations with the head teachers, the children are coming back. Some are very anxious. Interestingly, some children who have been in school the whole time because of there being key workers or vulnerable are also anxious, because suddenly the school is now full of children again, where they've had a very nice small school. Suddenly they're now a big school, and that's caused anxiety for children who have been there all the time. So there's lots to still be done. I think the most important thing is that we all talk to each other, and that we all make sure that what offers are available, everybody knows about. And that's part of the ambassador scheme. It's part of today. If we can brief people and they know, then they know who to refer on to. So I think they're the 2 questions I was posed, and I think I've covered a bit. Emma, feel free to join in.
Thank you very much, Phil. I can see on the chat that Rachel from East Coast College has reminded everyone that they have fully funded level 2 mental health courses for any adults. So that's certainly a good place to go to if you want to get some staff trained. Another thing that we could offer is introducing the Lived Experience Advisory Forum into your organisation. So if you are a medium to large sized employer, the chances are you will have several members of staff who have lived experience, and we can come in and work with them about making sure their voice is heard within your business and within your strategy. So you can drop me a line for that. My email will come out. And then I think also in regards to the children, specifically around post-COVID, we as an organisation have a couple of schemes that we're running at the moment where we can support individual children, families, schools or whole communities around that post-COVID recovery. So again, please do feel free to get in contact with me if you've got any concerns that you think we might be able to help with. I'll just do a final check for questions. Phil, are you using the Youth Council as a platform for mental care?
We are, and the Youth Waveney Youth Council, which for anyone who doesn't know is a really strong youth voice. It's a council made up of all the high schools and the colleges across Waveney who come together with their own chair, an own secretary, an own team. We just support them to be a voice. They obviously met regularly, and not surprisingly, they picked mental health as their priority just over 18 months ago when they did the annual takeover day. They did it on mental health, and they wanted their own mental health conference. And the schools have been working on it. It was 1 or 2 of the youth council teams that created some of the in-school walk and talks that the schools were doing. So actually the council of an individual school took back the idea and organised themselves, and another one organised a quiet room and the idea of having ambassadors in the school. So yes, the youth council actually have been involved and have been very vocal, because they see firsthand that it is a real problem in the schools. We try to engage with everybody, as you know, and we try to make sure that we help if they want to do a particular project. We then try to get an organisation behind them to help. And this is now where Jason can play a part in getting a business to sponsor even a school that wanted to do a particular thing that would boost people's well-being.
Thank you very much. And there's a couple of questions asking how people can contact Jason. In the chat bar, Jason has put his email address, but his details will also be out as part of the details from today. So don't worry, there'll be lots of opportunities for you to contact Jason. Final question for Karen, please. Could you advise how East Suffolk Council will be letting local businesses and communities know how the projects are developing for the Towns Fund?
Yeah. Sure, thanks, Emma. As mentioned in the presentation, each of the 5 Towns Fund projects will have their own stakeholder engagement plan and their own community communications action plan. Working groups for those will be set up, but we'll also be using this forum, so using the Ambassador Event Forum, as well as our website that's due to come online to enable us to engage and interact with everyone. And I mean, as well, with regards to the economic regeneration team, always very welcome to receive any comments, and our email will be circulated as part of the presentations from today. Thanks.
Lovely, thank you, Karen. So we have reached the end of our questions and our presentations for today. So really, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us. I hope you agree there's lots of really exciting things going on in Lowestoft. And I would ask you please to tell everyone about all the exciting things that are going on so that we can continue with our positive news story about Lowestoft. All of our contact details will be out with the information from today. So if you've forgotten a question or you want to get in contact with us individually, you will be able to do that. And we look forward to be able to provide you with future dates of ambassador events. And we'll see you all then. Thanks very much, everybody. Nice to see you. Bye-bye.